So there'll be 3 companies presenting pitch today. You get 7 minutes apiece, and then our panel of judges will, and the audience as well, will have the opportunity to ask some questions. And at the end, there'll be a public poll from you guys, and you get to pick the winner, and they'll also win a bottle of champagne. So first we have Andreas from SkyPal.
Thank you very much. So I got 7 minutes to give my very quick pitch on SkyPal and what we're up to. SkyPal is a European company. We're based in Norway, and we aim to pioneer clean air mobility. First in our region, later throughout Europe. Our vision is to create a future of aviation where zero-emission autonomous aircraft redefine transportation, sustainability, and accessibility. And our mission is clear: to launch Europe's first zero-emission air mobility service, but also to drive innovation in autonomous flight and paving the way for a more future of sustainable aviation. My background is from the conventional part of aviation. I've spent 8 years in the largest regional operator in Europe, Widerøe, where I had roles as Chief Strategy Officer, Deputy Accountable, and I was responsible for the entry into service of Embraer's E2 fleet back in 2018. My co-founder, though, has a very different background. He was the first to achieve an LUC in Europe, founding Nordic Unmanned, which is still among the biggest drone operators in Europe. We found our competence to be complementary and decided to go together to build the first zero-emission airline in Europe. We're now recruiting 4 more people to what we call an AOC design team. Those are in our network the best we can find to do this job in the coming years. The problem we all know: current air travel and parcel services for professionals and governments are not aligned with the net zero emission goals set by their clients. And since we're in the US, just to give you a brief of how crazy Europeans are becoming on sustainability, even the oil platforms in this basin between the UK and Norway are now being electrified to reduce emissions. Future context: with these commitments for net zero by 2035 to 2050, the aviation industry is at an enormous pressure to decarbonize. And we believe zero-emission air travel will lead this transformation. What we see as the opportunity is to, first of all, capture the early market. And we do already see customers willing to pay more for sustainable travel. We have big companies with policies now, well-known companies. A company I worked for before, PwC, don't travel anymore unless they really have to, unless it's zero emission. This is crazy. And it's becoming more and more important to really show that your company within Scope 3 is reducing emissions. So we believe there is a willingness to pay, and that we can already sell tickets at a premium with zero-emission technologies. Secondly, there is a change in EU regulations in the coming 2 years. The cost of CO2 will drastically increase when the free quotas within the EU ETS is taken away. That will make zero-emission technologies in a favor of other alternatives. Moreover, we believe in a big first-mover advantage, where we see financial benefits in soft funding being available for those that really want to innovate. And we also see a very interesting position to take in being the market leader on this in Europe. More so, we believe this is a capability journey where we start now and scale later. It's going to be difficult to EIS a big zero-emission aircraft from one day to another. But if we do this now and we start with the smaller ones in the commuter size, we will be ready when the bigger aircraft arrives. We're planning to start with cargo, where we look for a 3-year offtake agreement with one of the big logistics companies. Then we move on to passenger. From a certification point of view, it may not be a huge difference, but from a market acceptance point of view, we believe it's wise to start with cargo and then move on to passenger. Our approach to make this happen is to do a proof of concept next year, where we want to fly together with an OEM on the southwest coast of Norway. You may think that Norway is an icy, cold country far up north, but you'll be surprised that the southwest coast is actually not too bad. It's wet and windy like in the UK, but it's not too much snow. So it's a good place to start. Then we hope to enter into commercial cargo operation the year after. This is of course dependent on certification, not only on the aircraft, but also that we can get this aircraft on the up spec. 27 passenger operations, and we will also in parallel explore remotely piloted cargo operations. We believe this is where this may scale, if we can crack that code. The beauty of Europe is that if you are approved to fly in Norway, you're allowed to fly within 31 EASA countries. So we plan that our next hub expansion may be outside the country. It may be somewhere else in Scandinavia, it may be Denmark, it may be Sweden, but it could also be the Greek islands. It's depending on market. So why do we start in Norway? Well, we see that there is a great support from the government through soft funding schemes and government grants. We're already receiving money from Innovation Norway, and we expect to receive more. It's also the largest public service obligation market in Europe, with more than 200 million euros every year put into subsidizing regional air travel. And guess what? The Ministry of Transportation is mandating zero-emission technology when they are available. So to be ready for that is attractive. This follows a trend where Norway is pioneering zero-emission mobility. 94% of all new registered cars were last month EVs. 94%. So you can't buy anything but an EV in Norway at the moment. Lastly, Norway has signed an agreement with EASA to be a European test arena for zero-emission aviation. And this is really also why we believe Norway is a good place to start, because we need all the help we can get to crack this code and get this aircraft on the up spec. So why now? Well, we see that aircrafts are getting closer to certification, where we can soon fly aircraft and start crew training when they receive experimental certificate allowing for that. And we also see that the regulators are now preparing for entry into service. The CAA of Norway and EASA has now set up what they call a regulatory sandbox to allow for adjustments in regulation to make this happen. This, of course, fueled by political ambition, commitment to green finance, export finance and leasing options coming in place, and we see the customers are almost there. If you want to join us in pioneering clean air mobility in Europe, please connect, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you, thank you. Coming to our judge now, Dean, who might have a few questions for you, and also from the audience as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them after Dean has asked his.
Two questions for you.
Yep.
The first is, what aircraft do you plan to fly? How do you actually intend to get to zero emissions? Which might be a better question than what aircraft you intend to fly.
Yeah. We've been looking at different alternatives, and we're still OEM agnostic. But for a demonstration next year, we're looking at the Beta Alia aircraft.
And what happens to the business plan if the certification of those aircraft is delayed, et cetera?
For the demonstration, I think we're okay now with the certification already received. For an entry into service and commercial operation, there is a risk. There is a risk on, of course, the aircraft type certificate and also on EASA regulation on us as an AOC, right? So there is a risk there, but I think we're in a position where we see that the regulatory bodies are doing whatever they can to de-risk this for us with this test arena agreement in Norway.
And just one other question, which is, what do you expect the cost of the service to be relative to service that exists today?
Well, I'm not going to disclose any specific numbers, but we're looking at figures which are, I'd say, surprisingly close, not too much higher than a conventional Dash 8 operation. Somewhat higher, but not way off. And that makes it promising when these aircraft scale to maybe 9 and even 19 seats going forward.
I think we have one question for the audience.
Yep.
So that tremendous EV penetration, I'm a little bit this way. I'll wave my hand for you. No, you still are not looking in the right way direction. Here we go. The lights are blinding.
Sorry.
That tremendous EV penetration in Norway came in part because of regulation and the high taxes on gasoline cars, but also because the electric cars are actually better than the gasoline cars in the views of most buyers. How are you going to be better than the petrol-powered aircraft in order to achieve the same level of success?
Good question.
And not just because people feel good about it.
No, it's a good question. I believe, and it was a study a few years ago done by the Norwegian Institute of Transport Economics, asking 2,000 people living on the West Coast questions around this. And reality is that people are not willing to pay enormously much more for a zero-emission service, but they may be willing to switch, and they may be willing to trade even 10 to 15 more longer journey times. But I think it's extremely important, and I'm very sure it's important that we get the tax benefits which are being promised to us, and also that this change in EU ETS, the European Emission Trading System, where CO2 prices will drive up, will create a more favorable market where we can offer this at a better price. It is.
How are we going to be better by saying we're going to cost a bit more and take a bit longer?
Yeah.
Not the answer to that question.
My question is that Norway willing to look at adding electric aircraft manufacturing to the country in order to expedite this adaptation?
I think there is a potential that Norway may play a role in building industry around this. If you're looking at OEMs from here wanting to have an assembly line, for instance, or to subcontract battery manufacturing, things like that, great potential. Norway is an oil and gas nation, and it's critical for the country to be part of what is the kind of next business era. So I believe it's never been better to come and suggest new industries to develop in Norway, and the willingness to support that is great. So yes, I think that is for sure an opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. And now our second presentation, Luca from ARDA.
Which button? Next. Got it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present. My name is Luca Cavanis. I am a co-founder of ARDA, and I'm also a private pilot and analytics student at UC Berkeley across the Bay. At ARDA, we are working on AI industrial simulations, and so we are bridging real and simulated worlds. And starting with aviation, we enable anyone to create and share worlds effortlessly without development expertise. This has huge extensibility beyond aviation, but I'm just going to be looking at a thin sliver, which is aviation and flight training today. So our first use case in flight simulation looks at two key problems here, and for some reason we have one and one, but flight training is prohibitively expensive. When I got my pilot license, the hardest part of it was figuring out how to pay for it and self-fund it. And traditional simulators, which can reduce the flight time required to get your license and thus reduce your costs, are lacking flexibility and customizability, and so flight schools are looking for solutions. So I want to look at the incentive problem plaguing flight training. There's three key things here, and I'm also getting ones again. Students want to minimize flight time to reduce costs, and instructors want to maximize flight time to get time for the airlines. And the third is that flight schools want to maximize their profits, and they do this by optimizing student throughput, increasing the number of students coming through their flight program, and offering higher margin package items like flight simulation packages. So the question here is, how can we maximize outside the cockpit training to get pilots to their pilot license and beyond with less in-cockpit training where the engine is not on, while maintaining quality instruction without having flight instructors training outside of where they're actually getting their flight hours? So how can we figure out this incentive problem? So the traditional method is an accurate training environment, which looks like chair flying. You might have a poster, this is what I used in flight training, of your cockpit. And you're just working on processes and systems, looking at your checklist and going through your flows on the poster. This is really what a simulator is all about. It's not teaching you how to fly the plane, but rather it's teaching you the systems and processes up until the point of the physical flying. The problem here is an instructor is required to really get you to the point of understanding. Later you can do it by yourself, but there's no way to train without an instructor there. So back in April, me and my co-founder, we prototyped an AI flight instructor. I'm going to see if this will play. Yeah, so we were able to stream flight data from a flight simulator and then use a large language model, basically an anomaly detection system. If you look in the bottom left, we're observing a scenario based on the data and then proposing action based on customized input items like the pilot operating handbook and the FAA manual and other flying handbooks.
Trim to maintain speed and altitude.
So this got a lot of traction, and some key stakeholders in aviation reached out to us wanting to learn more. And so we kept talking to people. So we interviewed over 50 flight schools and found two key needs. One was this AI flight instruction piece, where we could train people on flight schools' specific curriculums and training documents. But then the other was a digital twin need, the need to really accurately represent the cockpit that the student is training in inside the plane. So out of that, we are doing two things. 3D generated cockpits with our 3D reconstruction capabilities, and then AI procedural pilot coaching. So the key difference here is that traditional 3D modeling is done with polygons and mesh, which is hard to bake AI understanding capabilities into. We do it with something called Gaussian splatting, and you don't need to understand that right now, but the key difference is that the rendering is done in a way that AI can immediately understand. So here's a little demo video. Here we go. So we're able to upload, this is a vertically taken iPhone video of the inside of a cockpit. And then you can upload documents like your operating handbook, manuals, checklists, standard operating procedures for your flight school. Here you're just uploading two, but you can upload a lot more. And then the next thing you'll see is the 3D reconstruction. This was done in about 5 minutes. The quality can look a lot better with more computing resources. And next you're going to see a bunch of dots. And this is the Gaussian splatting technology that's AI understandable. So this one's done with a video of the outside of the plane. And now we're basically stretching the splats, they're called. And now we can move around this 3D model of the plane. And it was just taken with a video from your camera. So this will allow students to go through their checklists and procedures inside a physically accurate model of the inside of their plane, and also practice walkarounds and other things on the outside of the plane. So flight schools are really excited to partner with us. Two of the flight schools that we talked to want to be design partners starting in January 2025. We're going to iterate with them and work with them to get to a product that really adds value to their students and instructors. And then 6 flight schools that we've talked to want to participate in our soft launch in March, which will be about 400 students. And then we are hoping to product launch with larger enterprise flight schools in Q2 2025. So at the core, what ARDA does is it links real-world environments with AI understanding capabilities. That's the core tech, and we think it has a ton of extensibility. And so we're really excited to talk to more experts and people in the aerospace industry and in other industrial domains to figure out where we can implement technology that reconstructs 3D environments and understands them with AI. So a few potential use cases in aviation. We can work in design and prototyping, modeling aircraft components, maintenance, and then training and guidance, technicians, ground crew, pilots, accelerating job pipelines, increasing safety, and accelerating prototyping processes. And then I'm running out of time here, but just a quick note on our team. We have a powerhouse team. My two co-founders are engineers from Stanford, and then they have 8+ years outside of Stanford in B2B software, multimodality, AI, and computer vision. And we have some great researchers and engineers working with us, and we are supported by some awesome advisors. So yeah, thank you very much, and I look forward to any questions.
Yeah, you're obviously going to run, it sounds like some trials with flight schools. How do you see taking this to market? Because the simulator market is obviously very consolidated. There's a ton of regulation around simulation. So are you a provider to those large companies, or where do you fit in the value chain of training?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to clarify that we are not seeking regulatory approval at all. There are approved simulators that can buy you basically maybe 10 hours of flight time for your instrument rating. I think it's 3 or 5 hours for your private pilot license. We're not seeking to replace that few hours. We actually think that this technology could replace a lot more hours just by making you more familiar with the training environment before you step in the plane. And so we don't need regulatory approval there, and instead we think that we can undercut the price of these simulators that are trying to do a lot and teach you how to fly the plane. So for example, the Redbird flight simulator is usually priced around $80 per hour to operate, and we think that we can charge flight schools $100 per month per student that uses this to save many, many hours beyond just 2-3 hours. And then we are also in discussions with 2 channel partners where they already have a subscription flight simulation and ground school service, and we could add on, we could be an add-on feature on top of that and get a portion of their revenue. And so all of that combined is looking at about $5 million first-year ARR if that all goes to plan.
Any other questions from the audience?
Are you doing anything on RT?
Sorry?
Speaking to air traffic control.
Oh, air traffic control.
Yeah.
No, we have not spoken to air traffic controllers. It could be an interesting use case. I don't know immediately how we would do 3D modeling for them, but I would be interested to talk with you about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, so many pilots hate learning RT.
Oh, yes.
So obviously you're doing the physical flying. Can you help them on, all the RT instructions?
Totally, yeah. So I think that that's another core competency of flight simulators, everything up until the point of flying, so that includes communication, navigation, et cetera. Yeah. There's someone back there.
Have you thought about going direct to the consumer, and specifically military student pilots? There's a huge population of people who are under an enormous amount of stress to make sure that they understand their procedures, that they're going to get hit with a clipboard. Have you thought about that?
So we've thought about going direct to the general consumers. I have not thought about going direct to military student pilot consumers. That would be interesting and I think very worth pursuing, so thank you. Yes, I will likely be taking the next semester off out of college, and we'll see where we go from there. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much, Luca. And to our last guys from Buy Aerospace, please come up and...
The buttons here.
Next. Big green one.
Okay, we're right there. Thank you. We'll start with, I'll get one.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. After this, when we have the break, we are going to have a quiz over what is said up here, so take close notes. So first off, I want to introduce myself. I'm Rod Zastro. I am the CEO of By Aerospace, named after George By, the founder, who has spoken here several years ago.
And my name's Jim Dunn. I'm the CFO, and Rod and I came in together to take a look at By and restart how we go to market and how we get our product to viability, profitability, viability. So I think a lot of folks, we've learned so much from you. Thank you for all your time. But I think a lot of us are going to be there, right? And so, you want to give your background first?
Sure. For me, I'm an aerospace engineer by background. I flew F-15s primarily in the United States Air Force for 26 years, commanded up to the base level, and finished with a tour at the Pentagon and senior policy. I then went and helped a well-known training organization go global, and then end up running the global division as the chairman and CEO of a number of training companies. So the previous presentation was spot on, and I want to applaud him and his team for working on an issue of the pilot training problem that we're going to talk about here briefly, because it's spot on, and that's much needed. I can confirm that.
And my background, I've spent about 35 years with private equity as a CXO, helping them do due diligence, a lot of roll-ups, M&A. I've probably been involved in 40 to 50 acquisitions on 4 continents. And I moved back to Colorado to take care of aging parents. And that's where I hooked up with Rod on behalf of one of the board members to say, hey, how can we restart this? And if I could, we have 2 other guys, if you'd raise your hand, from By Aerospace, Bill Minkoff and Brendan Minkoff, who are here to support us as well.
Thank you, Jim. So the 4 things in terms of what we have done over the last 5 months since I assumed the role I'm in currently is to ensure that we're communicating with our investors, prospective investors, our clients, as well as our strategic vendors. And we're doing that with clear focus on a specific market with a specific aircraft that you see depicted behind me, Jim and I, and with a clear need to get into execution mode, which was brought up earlier today, which is really critically important. So the 4 things I'd like you to take away from today is that 1, we have a clearly established, growing market for this aircraft. Number 2, we have a solution that will disrupt the pilot training industry by disrupting pilot training academy or flight school economics. Number 3, we have a clearly defined, established path to FAA certification. We have our methods and means of compliance already. Number 4, the market has responded with an order book of over 890 aircraft, which is a 2 to 3 year backlog. So let me go back and start with a focus on the market, which is the pilot training market, as I mentioned. As you all know, there are many reports, annual reports from Boeing, CAE, and Airbus. They're telling us we need 30,000 new pilots a year, and that number is growing. Right now, that means they need training aircraft. There's only 18,000 training aircraft in the world, maybe 11,000 here in the United States. The average age of those aircraft is 45 to 50 years old. So the 4 big manufacturers are only producing 600 to 800 a year. So this problem is growing. So we have a clearly defined problem, exacerbated by, as brought up earlier, the cost of pilot training. 80% of pilots drop out of pilot training due to cost. And that's really unfortunate. And we're here to help with that. So our solution is a unique combination and optimization of the aerodynamic structure, as well as combining it with a low-weight, all-composite structure. On top of that, using the aviation industry's best available battery technology for the highest possible energy density. And with those 3 in a unique combination, as far as we understand, we are the only clean sheet design that's all electric under a Part 23 class of aircraft that can get out for a mission training, for pilot training, a mission profile that exceeds 2 hours. And that is double all the other R&D programs that we're made aware of, and don't take it from us, that's from our prospective battery providers who are working on those very programs. So on top of, with all of those things combined, we drop the operating costs 80%, because of the reduction in fuel, maintenance, and so on and so forth. It leads to a very cheap to operate aircraft, which in turn also reduces the amount of maintenance and allows the pilot training organizations to actually add more hours because of the less complex aircraft and more available hours to then train more to increase their revenue. The next part is that clear regulatory path. We worked with the FAA, and in 2018, 6 years ago now, the FAA instituted rules, Part 23, Amendment 64, that we helped write. We were the first applicant in this area. We believe we're still the only applicant. And that's important because we have all the regulatory acceptance and the policy, if you will, approvals and acceptance, I should say, including our methods and means of acceptance, meaning we have our compliance checklist. We now are moving into execution mode to start that process, and therefore that will lead us then to type certification and production. And finally, our customers, our clients, of which we've had over 890 combination of paid non-refundable deposits as well as letters of intent. Over 50% are paid non-refundable deposits, and approximately 50% are with international customers. So we believe the world wants this, it needs it, and we're here to start producing it. So where we are today is in Denver, Colorado, at our hangar. We are literally fabricating the first E-Flyer, a full-scale, accurate, representative prototype that we are aiming to get in the air in 2025. And so with that, Jim, if you want to talk to our team.
Yeah, I'm going to just go to our financial. Well, on our team, I will go back to the team. We have a team here that has gotten over 20 planes through FAA certification. So George Bai, you've met before. Again, we know what market we're disrupting, and we have leadership in that market with Rod Zastro, and we have discipline, I think, in how we're trying to attack this and work as a team. It includes chief engineers and manufacturing, and John Knutson in the far right is kind of he used to work for the FAA. He was a Navy pilot that used to work for the FAA, so he's kind of our secret weapon. And we're close on time, but I will go through the next two slides really quick. As Rod alluded to, it's a 45-year-old fleet, right? And it will be no carbon, no lead, no noise, but it's 1/5 the operating cost. That is why people want to, why these guys want to get us, right? So, and we have more billable training. So on a day in the life.
So just very briefly, for a flight school that say has 15 aircraft, that may generate $9 million in revenue annually. By substituting, just simply substituting E-Flyers for, say, a Cessna 172 class of aircraft, that school, which typically might generate 10% EBITDA, that drops an additional $2 million to the bottom line, and about 1.8 to the bottom line, but because of the additional availability of the aircraft to fly, there's another $400,000 that could potentially drop to the bottom line. So you can see this would more than double the EBITDA by a simple just substituting the aircraft, without any changes in infrastructure other than electrical, of course, charging infrastructure. No airspace changes, no pilot training changes, no maintenance training changes, other than specialty courses that we would provide, as most OEMs do, for their clients.
So, and quickly, we'll get off this. On a financial summary, we've got a 3-year backlog right now on the planes. We'd have to get through the FAA certification. We are focused on a weekly basis, probably 2 or 3 pitches a week, to raise the money to take this to the next level. $50 million will get us to cash flow viability, and $2 million, the first 2 years, a lot of that's going in to get through the FAA certification. But after that, when you look at production year 1 on through, by the end of production year 1, we should have cash flow viability, right? Because we have all these back orders and how that cash works. Again, we have broken out for some specific audiences here how important our international is. So it's a very international group, and again, humble compared to some of the things you're doing, but this is doable. And I would submit we need somebody to get through FAA certification, right? A strong wind will lift all sails, and so thank you for all your hard work, and if you can help us find those investors, that's why we're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that was pretty comprehensive. Maybe I'll think of one in a minute.
Any questions from the audience? Thank you very much. Oh, is there a question? Okay, great.
Okay, can you comment on your strategy to get pre-orders?
Pardon me?
Can you comment on your strategy, how you got pre-orders?
Well, in part of the, so Rod and I came about a year and a half ago to basically bring some order to what they've been doing, change the culture, make sure that we're action-oriented. We did have a stall during COVID, and we'd raised some good money, but we need to keep it going. So our orders are actually, you know, in fact, Rod can speak to some of the orders personally because he was one of the first ones to actually sign up with Spartan.
So with my previous employer, I brought them in 2015 as the first institutional order. And along the way, to me, as a lifelong aviator, this seemed like such a natural evolutionary approach to simply change out the propulsion, system of propulsion, as we see in EV cars, which are becoming ubiquitous and very normal for us. To me, it seemed natural at that point, so I convinced my wife, we need to put a deposit down. So at this point, my wife and I have dozens of deposits. We didn't foresee my being here, much less on stage. And we had different purposes at the time, and I'm also a significant investor, so with a lot of skin in the game. So I take this as an incredibly humbling opportunity to help lead the team, and we're extremely bullish on our prospects.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say, we're selling into a very well-defined market, so it's fleet sales, right? So yeah, we have, in the last year, we've had almost over 400 that have signed up in some capacity or not. And again, these are guys that already have fleets, so they have the ability to loan against it. This will probably be OpEx for CapEx, right? So there's a lot of ways to do it. And one of the main reasons Bill Minkoff and his team signed up is because they used to be the largest seller of Tecnam in the United States, right? So we're building out the distribution to go with it. So we're a little bit, I would call us a late stage growth. I used to do a lot of work, not a lot, some work for the Foundry Group, and they would have called us stranded venture at one point. And the thing with stranded venture is you got to get moving again. And that's what Rod's leadership has done for us.
Hey, quick question on certification. How far are you guys into certification? Because typically a new aircraft is more than a year and a half, so I assume you're pretty far along in that process.
Sure, and to put it into analogy, what I don't like to do is call certification in defined stages because the FAA doesn't see it that way, although there are some graphic charts out there that might be interpreted that way. But we have gone through all of the policy work. We've done the heavy lifting. Before my time, the team did the heavy lifting of introducing to the FAA the notion of electric propulsion, and including, of course, the electric power unit, the battery management units, and then going back all the way to the batteries themselves. So all that heavy lifting's been done. We have our functional hazard analysis is accepted. All of our 16 system-specific certification plans have been accepted, and our G1, G2, and 14 other issue papers. So we're literally at the point where we need to raise the funds, build the airplane, follow through on our compliance checklist as we do our test plans, and complete that. And from where we are right now, our best estimate from our team, who's had experience on over 20 different platforms since bringing them to certification, is we believe that with robust funding, we have about a 24 to 30-month process. And part of the equation of that, the biggest part, in addition to us, is the FAA. We have developed an extraordinarily good relationship with the FAA, all the way to the senior officials. We have worked diligently to help them with this, to understand it. At the same time, they work with us as we come up with mutually agreeable approaches to this. And we believe we got strong support from the FAA. So what I can say is they call us asking, when are you going to get the airplane flying so we can come fly it? Yeah. So they're excited for us. And so we hope and we believe we've had some pretty strong informal commitments in terms of staffing process times and things like this. So we want to be conservative, And so we think that 24 to 30 month time frame has some reserve and conservatism in it. But at the same time, we'll be working very hard and diligently to go through our test plans as soon as possible.
And if we could call out a couple things. Number one, we're an integrator on the back end. So we've designed, and one of our partners, Safran, is our engine. And so they're working on their certification. Garmin is the avionics. Siemens is, we got 100% of our, is digitized in Siemens. So it's, and then we use as much commercial off-the-shelf stuff as we could. So to minimize supply chain, everything. The actual number of parts that our plane is versus a traditional 45-year-old plane is about a third. And so
yeah, we want to bring aircraft manufacturing, into the 21st century in the way we think from our incredible team's background experience and the way we want to work with the FAA to certify the aircraft. So we're doing, design for manufacturing and assembly up front. And we hear larger companies like Northrop saying for the first time they used that process for the B-21. So for us, small team, but what enabled that was in-kind help from Siemens with their NX and Team Center systems to digitize everything, and that'll allow us to shave many, many months and many, many millions as we go from eFlyer 2 to a growth model, which would be a 4-seater, eFlyer 4, which we hope we can carry on the same type certificate. Yeah. So we should be able to increase our product output and reach into deeper parts of this market and adjacent markets, such as the short-range regional air mobility, where we have several customers who want to order these for boutique travel opportunities on both sides of the coast here to islands just off the coast, as you might imagine.
Can you talk a little bit about your strategy to compete with Pipistrel that costs $250?
He's asking about strategy versus Pipistrel.
First, I want to commend Ivo for his introducing electric propulsion to the world the way he has done so, and what he did, before, of course, before Textron through EA Aviation acquired them. So my hat's off to him and what he's done with his company to introduce, and he was brave to do so, and he made it happen. From a utilization perspective, we see our aircraft as being very different on several reasons. Number one is certification. The Pipistrel Velis Electro is a light sport aircraft which is not eligible under Part 23 certification rules. There is, and this is actually a good thing, there is a waiver that the FAA granted to a flight school in California to use them in operational training. Now, it took them many years to get the waiver, but what it signals is that the FAA, beyond the policy work that was done to get into Amendment 64, has said for the first time, we are going to allow electric-propelled aircraft in training operations. So we were very happy about that. But in terms of our strategy, whereas the Pipistrel has approximately a let's say, 30 to 40-minute useful time in the air plus 30 minutes VFR reserve. Don't quote me on that, but I'm trying to characterize it as about that. That really creates some real limitations for flight schools and using them if they want to go to the airspace for their circuit or for the maneuver training and then back for circuit training. So we purposefully designed created our design so we'd have anticipating the energy density of the batteries, anticipating the aerodynamic efficiency, so that it would result in a 2-hour mission time. That way, so I come from the training industry, I ran a flight training school over for the Iraq Air Force and so on and so forth, so I understand in talking the need to make sure we talk with our clients. So in talking with major universities, international flight schools and airline flight schools that are customers and so on, they want an aircraft where they don't have to have this, if you will, range anxiety. And for flight training, 90+% of that training, as this gentleman knows recently, it does not require long range type operations. Now there's a flight or two across country that may be of concern, but beyond that, this duration allows flight schools to send their students up with instructors or solo and have plenty of energy to go to the airspace and practice and come back and still have all the VFR reserve time that they need.
Yeah. So
Those are the major differences, sir. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, one quick one. This is a press release we did not too long ago. We're building our very first plane. We're in Centennial Airport, is our hangar where it is. We would invite any of you to come out. We always need more champions and evangelists. So thank you for your time.
If I could ask Dean to come up and give his judgment, and in the meantime, could you guys get voting on which was your favorite pitch of the day?
Okay. Well, you guys are the diehards. You're still here at 5:30, and you're here. You're actually going to listen to me, so you're real diehards. So, get to the answer first. I feel like there's a little bit unfair competition. You've got kind of two early stage seed companies against Buy Aerospace. So, the playing field is not exactly level, but clearly the guys with the most developed comprehensive business plan is Buy. So congratulations, guys. I think you win the award. You know, there are both, I think, positives and some questions about each of the companies. You know, Buy's taken a lot of deposits. You know, they've got a certification plan that they're dependent on, which has, you know, some vendor dependencies. So I think those would be things to watch out on. But, you know, does the training industry need a cheaper, more efficient aircraft? Absolutely. It's a good idea. It should make money, and it should be very competitive. In terms of SkyPals, they were number 3 on my list. You know, very high-minded mission, obviously. I think it's great that you're starting with freight, because I think that'll be an easier place to start, and then move into passenger aviation. I think that the challenge that the business plan has, in my view, is these are not certified aircraft yet. I would have felt a lot more comfortable with the business plan if you said, okay, you know, here's how I'm going to approach this, and I have some certainty on the aircraft I can get for this. Or even, I'm going to start this with a PT6-based aircraft that I can run SAF on. I think that takes a lot of technological dependency out of a business plan that would get funded right away. The second thing that I think SkyPause will have to look at very carefully is what the economics actually look like. So I am skeptical that you're going to get a 9-seat aircraft, even if it's all electric, and especially a 4-seat aircraft like Beta's aircraft, to anything like Dash 8 economics. And I'd love to be proved wrong, because if I'm proved wrong, we're going to have a lot of regional aviation all over the world. But I think that's a very challenging proposition, not because of the operating cost, but because of the capital cost associated with flying 4-seat aircraft and the challenges with getting electric aircraft recharged on longer missions. So I think they've got some work to do to think through the economics there. Intriguing award of the day goes to ARDA. I think there's a lot of work to do in figuring out how to monetize that twinning technology and go to market. But, you know, is the idea that familiarization in non-certifiable ways in the aircraft business, or even in things that don't require any certifications at all, is that a very good way to train? Yes, I think it is. Are there a ton of applications? Absolutely. I think the key is finding ways where you can get the core idea up and running quickly and cheaply and get paid for it quickly as well. And, you know, I think it's a very early stage company, and so there's a lot of thinking to be done there, but very exciting piece of technology. So that's it. That was my 2 cents.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. So congratulations to Buy for winning the judges' vote. But the all-important vote comes from you guys, and the winner today from the public vote is Arda and Luca. So congratulations. A round of applause. You come and claim your champagne. That's yours. You're going to drink it now. That's the... Brilliant. And thank you to all of you guys for coming today, and I hope you've had an enjoyable event, and there's a cocktail outside, so please feel free to go get a drink and relax. Thank you. See you tomorrow.